Okay, good morning, I guess it is to most people. And welcome to ELTea Time MENA, which is our coffee break style advancing learning podcast series. For each episode, I'm joined by an educator, a guest from right here in the Middle East and North Africa region. And together we will engage in a 30 to 40-minute discussion on a contemporary topic of their choosing over a nice cup of tea. And today I am joined by Shaista Qureshi. I make sure I get the surname right as well. That's right, Qureshi?
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect. Good. Shaista is originally from Delhi, but she's been in Saudi Arabia for quite a long time, and she's been the head of English and Social Studies at Hussan International School in Riyadh for the last 6 years, where she's also teaching English to IGCSE and A-level students. Now, I looked at your CV. You've got a ton of recognitions, contributions, workshops. You've organized a ton of things. So I'm hoping that you can tell us a little bit about that. But the one we are definitely going to talk about is the most recent one that you've had, which was being a shortlist out of about 7,000 people or teachers for the 2022 Cambridge Dedicated Teachers Awards. So hopefully we're going to talk a little bit about that. Her interests include innovation in the classroom. She likes thinking about motivation and engagement, which is why she's joining us on today's podcast. And I actually want to read out the little blurb that she's got as part of her CV or her bio, I guess. She says, "My dedication to my profession knows no boundaries, and I venture into challenging realms and motivate students to explore limitless possibilities. I dedicate a huge amount of time training students for Model United Nations debates and extracurricular activities." And I definitely want to talk about these debates in a second. "I believe in innovative, out-of-the-box teaching strategies and focus on developing future leaders. I aim to help students positively impact the world around them and, by enabling their potential, igniting their creativity, and putting the wind under their wings." I wanted to read that out because I love that last little statement, putting the wind under their wings, lifting them up, giving them the skills that they need to become good citizens, as well as future leaders, employable, all of these types of things. So I'm pretty sure you've got an absolute ton of stuff to talk to us about today. Before we do though, of course, ELT time. Shaista, what are you drinking? Do you have any hot drink with you?
I have a cup of Karak tea. I don't know if you can see it, or I'm not able to bring it here.
There you go. We got it. I've got black tea with rose and orange. That's my tea of choice.
Interesting. That's interesting.
We've got 30 minutes to get through this tea. Okay, so a very warm welcome to you today, Shaista.
Thank you.
The topic today is active learning. So we're going to be talking about student engagement a lot and getting students active, I think, in the classroom, but beyond the classroom as well. I know you've got a lot of things that you want to tell us about. So, but before we get into the topic, I mentioned a few things about you in the bio there, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you went from India to Saudi Arabia, what kind of influences and motivations have you gained along the way, I guess.
Thank you, Mr. Nathan, for that robust introduction. Basically, I was born and brought up in Delhi, which is the capital of India, a melting pot of diverse cultures and ideas. So it all dates back from the childhood that you've been involved with a huge, diverse population. You interact with them, you gain and you learn. I moved to Saudi Arabia in the year 2000, and ever since then, I've been involved in teaching and management positions at various schools in and around the Middle East. So all this dates back to my first year when I started teaching, and I realized that how students, when engaged with the content, are able to produce better results. So I started working and focusing on that aspect and started developing myself and looking for new strategies and opportunities that I can bring into the classroom rather than old traditional styles of teaching. And so far, there hasn't been a looking back.
Yeah, nice. So did you train to be a teacher in India first, and then you moved to Saudi Arabia?
Well, in India, I worked as a marketing manager with an institution. When I moved to Saudi Arabia, I didn't have much choice, so I started teaching. But as I started teaching, I started realizing the immense benefit and the nobility of the profession, and I took it as my career. Then I enrolled for a Bachelor of Education in the same stream and for Cambridge Teachers Training course.
Yeah.
So that's where my journey in education began.
Okay, nice. Yeah, and I think that's probably true for a lot of people, right? They start, and then that passion kicks in and ignites, and they become senior teachers and heads of department. And the more you do, the more you get into it. I think the more the
Absolutely.
the more the passion grows, I think.
Yes.
In education,
it's a very rewarding kind of a profession when you feel that you're able to contribute and make a difference in someone's life. I think that's the takeaway of the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's come across, I think, in many of the podcasts that we've had recently. All of those stories that have come out, show that dedication, that they show that passion. Okay, since we're talking about this dedication, we're talking about this passion, I really want to talk about the Cambridge Dedicated Teachers Awards very quickly before we get on to the topic itself. So obviously from me, and probably from the listeners as well, congratulations for being one of the shortlists in the, I think it was Middle East and North Africa category. So the Cambridge Dedicated Awards happen every year. And people, for those of you who don't know about it, people get nominated. You don't nominate yourself, somebody else nominates you, or a group of people can nominate you. And they write in your submission, they talk a little bit about you. And then, so there were 7,000 entrants this year. And there was one winner per region, I think, region of the world. And then there's like 4 or 5 shortlists, basically. I guess they're I don't know if you call them runners-up or if you call them finalists. I don't know what they would call them, but they're called shortlists anyway. And you are one of these shortlists, which is such a fantastic achievement. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, what was that experience like, finding out, what did this mean to you, this achievement?
Well, it was a stupendous and phenomenal experience and a source of motivation for me for many years to come. It's a very humbling experience for me. It was also a moment of reflection, as it indicates that the teacher has a huge impact on the students, and it reads the sign, choose your footprints wisely, because there are those who are following yours. So having your hard work recognized by your students, appreciated by your students, is in itself an achievement. And I'm really very thankful to my students, to the management, and to my family, of course, who are there all throughout this journey. This award means a lot. It means a lot. It's a huge responsibility on my shoulder. And as the wise saying says, with great recognition comes great responsibility. So this award comes with the responsibility of living up to that expectation that my students, my management has with me. And it also comes with the constant need to develop, evolve, and look for new opportunities, ideas, and strategies and resources, and to be able to make an iota of difference in the student's life.
Yeah, that's so nice. And it's so nice and refreshing that when you're talking about that, I can really feel this this sense of humility, because you're not seeing it as this grand achievement, like an end of the road. You're actually seeing it as something almost at the beginning. It's pushing you to a new stage. You're reflecting on it. So yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. So congratulations, definitely, on that achievement.
Thank you.
And we will continue to watch you closely to see what bigger and brighter and better things come in the future, both for you and your school and for your students as well. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Actually, you know what, before I move on, I want to read actually the part of the submission. So this is what somebody had written in, I guess, as part of their submission about you. And I think it's really nice. So they said, and obviously this is in quotes, I passionately believe that Miss Shaista should be nominated for the Dedicated Teacher Awards. My reasoning for such a belief is as follows, and there's a list. First, this extraordinary teacher previously transformed the classroom into a captivating platform, undeterred by it being virtual. So, they really recognized that during COVID, you really kind of stepped up and changed the way that you were doing things to keep it engaging and motivating. They said that she executed her lessons in a way that is memorable, educational, and growth allowing, making it anticipated. And I like that word. So giving students this idea of knowing what's coming next. That's sometimes, I think, missing in the English language classroom from all the years of observations I'm doing. We're very much about delivering, but not always setting them up for knowing what's coming next. So that's a really important part. Moreover, she encourages them to do well and find confidence in what they are doing. In such stringent times, she devoted her personal time to help students, such as the debate club, coming up in academics and co-curricular activities. And lastly, she has accomplished so much for the school, establishing the first, I don't know what the acronym stands for, but it's AHISRMUN and Debating Club. So you can tell us a bit about that in a second, I think. Aiding and our first debating team to win 3 out of 4 debates in our sister school, and also taking the debating team to various inter-school events as well. So again, this idea of getting students out of the classroom and then using that again for active engagement. So that it's really amazing. And I think it's really important to touch on that and talk a little bit about this submission. So congratulations again.
Thank you so much.
Shall we?
Well,
oh, no, go for it. What do you want?
The AHSIR, MUN and debate clubs, they refer to Hussan International School, Riyadh's model United Nation that we set up, and the debate clubs that we set up for the students. We made them stay back after school for practice, and during all my free periods, they were allowed to come in, and I trained them during the breaks that I have. So I dedicate every single minute that I can find to help the students do better, not just academically, especially in all these kind of activities, because communication is a huge part of your professional development. As a student, as an individual, as a professional, you need to be able to communicate. Yeah. So this is what I worked in, and I'm really thankful to the students for recognizing this and appreciating it.
Yeah, nice. I see the acronym now. Actually, now you said it. I was looking at it before and I was like, I can't figure out what it means, but yeah, Hussan International School, Riyadh, Model United Nations Debating Club. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I feel like I've done a lot of the talking so far for the introductions and obviously reading out some of those quotations. So let's move on to the topic. Let's get you telling us a little bit about it and your experiences within it. So we're talking about active learning. So first of all, I think, what is active learning? I mean, we hear lots of buzzwords in education. So what is active learning and why is it that important to you?
Well, basically, active learning is a process in which we engage the students in activities like discussions, problem solving, that promote analysis, synthesis, and evaluation of your class content. Now, it might look like a robust, huge task, but actually it's a very small process that reaps big reward. The students, the learners are discovering, synthesizing, analyzing, processing the content that you are providing to them. And it leads to very active involvement of the students and the students taking charge of their learning. Okay. So please.
No, I'm still listening. Someone's put in the chat box, active learning is interaction. But listening to what you're saying, it's more than interaction, right? You can get students interacting. Yeah.
Absolutely. It involves interaction and it involves a lot of collaboration. It basically encourages the brain to activate cognitive and sensory network. So hence it promotes better learning. According to a research, learners retain 70% of what they say, 90% of what they do. Now, compare this with the 10% of they read, or 20% of they hear, or 30% of what they see. And you will realize how important active learning is and the crucial role it plays in the students' learning. So having said that, we have to come out of the notion that it's a huge, robust task and we need to prepare a lot and get trained a lot. Well, it involves small baby steps. A simple activity can turn your passive classroom into a classroom where we are engaging, we are discussing, we are collaborating, and we are learning. So it plays a very vital role, especially in today's pedagogical world where we as educators are facilitators. If we talk about information, Google has a wealth of information which you and I can never be able to memorize or bring to the classroom. And it's available at the student's disposal. So we have to facilitate learning. We have to be the enabler of learning. And students need to take charge of that learning. So this is what active learning basically focuses on.
Yeah.
And this leads to experiential learning. Students are able to experience and take that learning out of the classroom, the four walls of the classroom. And that's where I feel the personal development takes place. When you're not just passively receiving a 40, 50 minutes lecture, you're using the knowledge and information and creating something different, which is relevant to the present world day scenario.
Yeah, and I think that that's an important point, right? That's that if you're teaching in a passive learning methodology, that you would just repeat. You would just do the same class the next year, exactly the same. But active learning would show that the two classes, your objectives could be the same, but the outcome of the class would be totally different because the emphasis is on the students rather than the emphasis on the content, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's student-centered learning.
Yeah.
So it brings out huge benefits in terms of academic performance of the students as well, because you're involving all sorts of learners, whether they are shy learners, whether they are low achievers, they're involved in the process and they feel like contributing.
Yes.
So that really helps and gives them a boost.
Okay. So well, part of the first question was why was it important to you? I know that it's very difficult being a teacher, and the amount of content that teachers need to get through. If we're just getting them to the end of the year, we need them to pass their exams. It could be kind of passive. So why are you really keen on this idea of making it more active? Because it makes it more difficult as well for a teacher, right? To make a classroom active.
Well, first of all, I'd like to add on to this notion that not every single lesson of yours can be active. Okay. You have to have a combination. I mean, I can't say that, okay, traditional method ends here and you have to have every single lesson that you deliver as an active learning lesson. Active learning lessons are lessons that make your task easier. It helps the student imbibe the information that you're trying to give and work with it. For example, if you have a class and you involve a simple activity of think, pair, share with your students. Now, the students get to work with whatever content you're saying. So instead of spending 40 minutes trying to make them understand something, now you are giving them a chance to understand on their own, share their ideas, and discuss it. Now, this can be topped up with they presenting what they find in terms of a PPT, in terms of a radio or commercial, TV commercial, or simply a talk show. At the same time, we can involve evaluation of this content by putting a simple strategy of 2 stars and a wish. 2 things that the group presented that you really like, and 1 thing that you wish. So now you've made the whole process easily digestible, given them chunks that they can work with easily and achieve the same result. That's the outcome.
Yeah.
So instead of making the task robust, it has actually made it easier for the teacher to achieve the outcome. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just embracing that, I think. Though you were just talking about those particular activities, you made me think of a really popular Macmillan title, which is Global Stage, which has those activities in it. The 2 things and a wish and the think, pair, share, they're all embedded into the course books now. to make it easier for teachers. I taught English 12 years ago. Some of those old course books, they didn't contain any of that stuff. So, I think modern course books definitely help teachers to integrate some of those active learning skills into the classroom. I really liked when you said that it's not about getting just 100% getting rid of traditional teaching. And I think sometimes there is this feeling for teachers that, traditional is bad and innovative is good. So we must go down this route, and they try to make everything innovative. And I like the fact that you say that it needs to be a balance. Sometimes we do need to do, more rigorous language activities with the students. And then other times, doing something a bit more creative, a bit more engaging, balancing that off. Do you, you were talking, do you use things like flipped classrooms? Are they helpful?
Yes, I do use, especially because I deal with high school students. So I love this approach, and I give them the content to work with. The latest that I can remember was when I was teaching Hamlet to them. I told them, I introduced the characters, and Shakespeare is not so easy to deliver and for the students to take in. But at the end of the whole lesson, the students were really engaged. They had their own likes and they had their own dislikes. They hated specific characters. We tried the characters in the court of law, and they were very vehement in defending and putting on the trial the characters. So this all was possible because of this flipped classroom approach that you said. I gave them the information and I said, now you have to come up with your own ideas. If you are this character and I'm putting you under this accusation that you've killed and you've done this, and morally is it correct? And it was phenomenal to see how well they responded to it. So something like this, a daunting task, is very easily achievable when you get them involved and having fun with the content. They don't even realize they're learning, and we are able to achieve the outcomes.
Yeah, I like this comment as well, that traditional teaching methods are okay, but still we don't have traditional students anymore. So students themselves are forcing us to change. So that's a really nice comment as well, I think. Yeah, okay. So, and another thing I think that came out from what you were talking about is that we use this word active, right? So I think when people think of active, they think of like it being like students up and moving a lot and, being quite chaotic in the class. But active learning doesn't necessarily always have to be like, loud and movement all over the place. I think people kind of teachers worry about that a little bit. Like if I give them too much freedom to move around and do whatever they want, I will lose control. But active learning is more about meaningful activities, students' interests, and getting students to actually think about what they're doing. That's what I'm hearing you say, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. The students take charge of their learning. The students know what exactly is expected out of them. And here, I'd add on that careful planning of the content plays a very important role. If you've not planned your content, you're not sure of the steps you'd be taking to achieve your outcome, you might feel lost and you might feel that, oh, now I don't have any control. It's not going the way it should have. But if you plan your activities in a timely manner, okay, you've got to give 5 minutes to this activity and then the students stop, and you communicate it through clear instructions, I think you will never lose control of the class. You would set the purpose clear, loud and clear in front of the learners, and they follow your instructions. So careful planning and execution is important if you want active learning to actually succeed in your classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Okay, so I think we've all established that, and looking at the chat box, I think people definitely agree that the active learning, experiential learning, somebody's mentioned things about project-based learning in there. All of these things are, learning is more effective when it's active rather than passive. I think we're all going to agree on that, I think. So let's talk a little bit more about what you and your team, because you're a head of department, so you've got a team that you're working with. So you've embraced this idea of active learning, not just by yourself, but with a team. So you've obviously had to coach other teachers in terms of what they're doing. You probably do observations. So can you tell us some of the things that you or some of your teachers have done, active learning strategies? Like, how did you go about them? How did you set them up? What did you achieve by doing it this way rather than a different way? And perhaps I think what people will be really interested in is what kinds of challenges have you faced in trying to achieve these, and maybe how you overcame them? So there's a few parts to that question. I'm sorry, but if
Yes,
you need me to repeat
no
any of it,
worries.
just let me know.
Yes, okay, so I'll begin with what we do at Al Hussan. Al Hussan International School it's a huge group. It includes 19 schools all across Africa and Asia. Now here at Al Hussan, we encourage the students to critically think and come up with ideas that are out of the box, to analyze the content, to develop interpersonal and communication skills. So we have a diverse population of students coming from different backgrounds that add on to this and helps us achieve this. So the strategies that we use or involve are as follows. The first thing that we do is, before we begin the academic year, we train our staff, we analyze the needs, and we conduct extensive professional development sessions where we equip them with the latest pedagogical tools that promote collaborative and active learning environments. Having given that, then we work with the curriculum and include 21st century skills, digital literacy, media literacy, cross-curricular learning, and collaborative tools to enhance the content that we'll be presenting. Now, it's a teamwork. So everybody is involved and everybody is contributing, giving ideas as to how to make a specific topic or a specific part of the content much more engaging, what activities can we include, and how we'd go about it. Having done so, we meet every week, once a week, and then we evaluate and reflect on those strategies. Were they successful? Some activities work really, really well. Some are a hit and a miss. If they were a hit and a miss, okay, then what next? What went wrong? How could we change that? And what can we do differently to make sure that we achieve those goals? We also have a process called peer observation. During the school year, we make sure that we visit each other's class and we pick up the best practices. And this makes learning easier because we build up on each other's strength. You might be good at something, I come, I take it from you. I might be good at something. And then it's a wealth of experiences that help us build on each other's strength. So that's something that we look at Al Hussan. Now I'll come to the next part of your question when you said that how this approach has helped us. This approach helps not just the teachers, but the students as well. Now, teachers develop professionally because there's a continuous improvement going on, continuous learning that is going on. And they're building upon each other's strength, they're learning from each other's experiences. The students, on the other hand, become more receptive of whatever we are trying to put on the table. They get engaged with the content, and hence this affects the academic progress. So we have students who are low achievers and we really have to work with them. Now in this setup, everybody feels that he or she is contributing to the whole environment. And there is a takeaway, okay, I did this. Putting them on platforms like presentation of their work in front of their class, inter-class activities, inter-school activities. This also is not just competitive, but helps in their overall development and personality grooming. And students look forward to these activities and they demand activities. For example, last time I had spelling bee in one of the term and the parents were so impressed by that activity that they asked me to repeat it every term. So it's everybody who's getting involved in the process. As everything comes with pros and cons, yes, I do have constraints that do occur, one being time constraint. Some activities, as I mentioned earlier, are hit and miss, especially for the newcomers. So they take time to understand it's fine if I don't get it. We will reflect on it, we'll work on it, and then we'll devise another strategy. Another challenge that we sometimes face is the seamless transition during the training of new staff when the staff joins in the middle of the year. And sometimes planning time is a challenge. At times we have so many ideas, the wealth of ideas is so much that choosing and leaving out others becomes very difficult.
Yeah.
So that also poses a challenge. To overcome these, we have instilled kind of a rotation system in our school wherein we rotate the planning. So the load is not on a specific teacher. Every teacher shares and collaborates and gives the feedback. Now, this helped in reducing the load and having effective planning in place. Peer observations, as I mentioned, is another tool that is very effective in making sure that if a teacher joins in the middle of the session, there is continuous growth and development. Another very important aspect, something that I really like, is a mentor system we have put in place. So we assign a specific mentor to a teacher that we feel needs support or a newcomer, and this helps in easy communication with the mentor and the mentee. So both ways, it's a two-way process, and they both benefit from each other. We try to make optimum use of the state-of-art facilities that are available at our disposal. I mean, if you look around today, the technology has revolutionized the learning. You have e-tools, you have resources, you have platforms that you can use very easily and convert a simple, normal, boring classroom into a very active and very engaging classroom. And of course, you mentioned the flipped classroom that I really love and enjoy using. So I believe these are a couple of ways in which we are overcoming these challenges and trying to continuously develop and hone ourselves. And I definitely believe in the positivity. I try to instill this in my team and tell them it's absolutely fine if we are not able to achieve or if we fail at an activity. Take that as a learning opportunity. Take a learning out of it. Don't take it as failure. It's something that will teach you what not to do next time or how to do it differently next time.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's loads of great stuff in there, and let's focus on a few different areas of some of the things that you've been talking about. You were talking very much at the beginning about it being a team effort, and I've definitely said this in a lot of the sessions that I've delivered, the importance of a teaching team being able to communicate, being able to work together, problem solve together, but also this idea of great leadership of a teaching team. And again, we talked a little bit before about student leaders. And for me, if you want to promote student leadership, you have to model good leadership in your team and in your school. I think that's really, really important for students to be able to see that. And it sounds like from all the things that you're talking about that you've got this really great leadership style at your school. It's really impressive, to listen to you talk about the way that, you're talking about things like peer observations, and they're not easy peer observations. There's got to be an element of trust. There's got to be good communication channels. Teachers need to feel like they're being observed for purpose and not just to be judged or, for evaluative purposes. And that's not an easy thing to do in a school with a group of teachers. I know that from personal experience. I've had, managers who have come to observe purely, without it being a part of professional development. They want to do evaluations and this type of thing. They're trying to catch you out, for example. These types of things happen a lot in schools. So it's great to hear that, there is this school in Saudi Arabia where these great things are really happening. So definitely kudos for that. So I wanted to bring that up. The activities all sound really great. What really struck me from your discussion around the challenges around active learning was the fact that none of those challenges were about students. The students don't seem to be a challenge in your description. And actually, I think when people think about active learning, I think a teacher would say, oh, okay, I would like you to do some more active learning in your classroom, get students engaged. The first thing I think that they would think of is the students are going to be challenging in trying to achieve this. Students aren't always that engaged. they're often trained as they go through the school system to focus on exams and, absorbing knowledge. And it was really interesting that you didn't talk at all about this idea of the students are a challenge in this transition. I don't know if that's true or not, but...
Well, honestly speaking, Mr. Nathan, I feel that students are clay. You can mold them into whatever you want. The first step is to believe in each and every student. Every student has capability. Every student has a potential. And the same goes for you and me. Every individual has something that he or she can contribute. And I'm blessed with a wonderful team at my school who really helps and supports me to deliver this. Each and every member of the team contributes. And I believe in each and every one of them. They try their level best to bring forth the best. So that's why I said that it works wonders when I work with my team, because everybody is involved in the process. Everybody feels, okay, they're doing the part. And of course, not to forget that, yes, the management plays a very important role. The management supports whatever initiatives we bring, and they help us achieve those initiatives. Coming back to students, as I mentioned before, if we plan carefully, then the students do not pose a challenge. The students would do it. If you lead them astray, you give them an activity which is supposed to finish in 5 minutes and you're spending 15 minutes on the activity, now the students are bored. But if you don't give them that space, okay, you finish this activity, now this leads to this next activity, which is based on the results of this activity, then the students are involved in the classroom.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of active learning.
Yeah. And personally, I think students want to be active. I think they want to be engaged. I think sometimes you have to break down this feeling that they have, some of the status quo around, what learning in school should look like for students. And that can be a slow process. And again, you said baby steps before. I think that's really important. But I think at the end of the day, the schools that have achieved it, their students they do really well. And students who might not do very well academically often perform above what you think that they're capable of, because they just don't want to learn passively. And then it turns into this vicious cycle, right? Where you think that they're not very good and you think that they're not engaged, and it spirals downwards, right? They don't get involved, so they don't really learn anything. And then they have perhaps behavioral issues. And part of that is probably because we've not tailored what we're doing, as you said, to their interests, to what it is they want to do. I think if we go back to what somebody said in the chat box before about project-based learning, if you model what the project could look like at the end, and like you say, show them step by step, and then tailor it according to what they're interested in, those projects can go anywhere, and they really use the language. They can present, they can write, they can create things together, murals and all sorts of things, get parents involved, all of these types of things. This is making it, as somebody said, inclusive, making it active. Yeah, really nice.
Absolutely, absolutely. You have to take the learning into the real world scenario and make them connect. Everything is interlinked. We are a global world now. So when you connect it, then it makes more sense to them. Then they're able to relate more and learn better. So definitely it helps.
Actually, let's because we're running out of time a little bit, but I do want to talk about the debate stuff that you do, because this is this idea of taking it beyond the classroom. So why did you get involved in debates? Why did you choose that? I mean, you could have chosen anything. You could have chosen theatre or something else. Why did you choose debates?
Well, this is something very close to my heart. I love debating, and I've been involved in school as a debater. So this is a passion for me. And if you look at the students, they want to be heard. They want to express themselves. And when I conducted the first debate, yes, it was a bit of a challenge, but then when we explained the whole process to them and they got involved and they were so passionately working to prove their points in their groups, researching, and I thought that this has an immense potential here, and it would definitely shape the personality of the students. They become more confident in expressing themselves. And this led me to be establishing the Model United Nation, which is a level higher than debating, because then they represent the countries and they talk about global issues and they talk about their own perception, and they connect with each other, they lobby. So it was a huge growth aspect that I saw that would help students look at the world in a different perspective. And it was very well received by the students and my management, and I was able to work it out. And today we successfully send our students to Model United Nations all across Saudi Arabia, and they win awards and accolades. And the first debating team, yes, that I took was to a sister school with 4 contestants, and we won 3 out of that. So that was a first boost. And ever since then, we haven't been looking back. And now the students themselves want to have these kind of activities, and they take the charge and the leadership, and they come up with things that we can do and we can achieve. So again, there I've built up a kind of a team of students who are really willing to contribute and do better themselves.
Yeah, that sounds really nice. I did some debate stuff actually. I lived in Kenya for a little while, a long time ago.
Okay.
And we did debates clubs with really underprivileged schools. And these students, yeah, they weren't expected to perform academically at all. And they were very articulate, and they learned, someone was saying about critical thinking skills. They definitely learned that. Communication skills they learn, but they also learn, I think, other types of life skills. And the skills that they learn in debating when you go into the world of work are so key. The ability to be able to listen, to be able to take other people's points of views, not be reactive, be patient. All of these types of skills are really vital for students. So I also love debate activities as well. They're really great. And it's amazing to hear that your team and your students have been quite successful as well. So congratulations for that as well. In terms of active learning, because we're coming towards the end, is there anything else you would like to talk about? Did you have any other points that you'd like to make before we come to the end?
There are different strategies that anybody can employ to have a simple classroom into active learning classroom. What I'd like to point out is we don't have to get stuck to a specific activity. And what I try and do is I combine different activities to come up with something new. So I think that taking small steps, as I mentioned, and having a variety of activities would keep your learners engaged. If you keep having a monotonous kind of a routine, even if it is active, then it becomes a drag. So try to innovate and bring out a fresh look into the lesson with different forms of activities, and that would help you sustain and keep the engagement level of the students.
Okay, yeah. I think starting small, baby steps, just sometimes building or adapting some of the activities that you already do, just perhaps a bit of a focus on, okay, how can I make this activity, change it from passive into active? So you're not doing something differently, you're just doing it differently in the way that you approach it. So that's a really nice tip. Okay, so we're coming to the end, and we always like to finish off with some tips, some teaching tips. I know you're the head of English and Social Studies, so you've probably got loads of tips for the teachers that you already work with. But let's just say I'm starting at your school in September as a new teacher. In fact, based on what you say, I wouldn't be surprised if you get some CVs in the post. But let's say I'm going to come and start at your school. What would be your top tip or piece of advice that you would give to me?
Well, I truly believe in Sir Ken Robinson's words. He said, if you're not prepared to be wrong, you will never come up with anything original. So my first step would be that go out and explore the limitless possibilities that are available to you, and never be afraid of failure. Because every time you take that fear of failure out, you are turning it into an opportunity to learn and grow. So that's constant development and evolution of yourself. So that would be my first tip. And another advice that I'd give would be to invest time in researching and planning for effective delivery. Because many a times we want to do it, but we don't plan it well. We don't go around saying, okay, what can be done differently from a traditional classroom? And then when we don't get the results, oh, I tried. But actually you didn't try it in the right way. So the right approach to active learning is very crucial. if you want to succeed or if you want to make a difference. So another tip that, of course, it depends on the content and we're running out of time, so I'd just make it short, that it's a continuous journey. So every time you achieve something, you set the bar higher for yourself. So you can start with one activity at a time in your lesson, and when you feel that you've mastered and your students have been able to work the way you want, you can include many and several different activities. Now here, one thing that we need to keep in mind is to keep a balance. If you increase the content, the challenge of the content and the process at the same time, this would lead to cognitive overload. And this would make it very difficult to have an engaging, meaningful content delivery. So you need to strike a right balance. And most importantly, take feedback positively. Use it effectively as a sort of reflection to make the changes, to develop new strategies, to see how things can work differently. And go ahead and venture out and be positive. Life always brings something new and something positive at the table. So take the positivity.
Yeah, I like that. Ending with that positive notes. Be positive. But really good things that you mentioned. Reflection, planning, the importance of these things. Being able to make mistakes and being able to recognize them, reflect on them, and moving forward, seeing it as a learning opportunity, as people have been mentioning in the chat box there. So loads of great advice and loads of great pieces of advice and activities that you've been giving people this afternoon. We're coming to the end. So, I think I found one quote which I really liked from someone called John Holt, which I'm sure most people will probably have heard of. His quote was, and I'll end on this one: "Learning is not the product of teaching. Learning is the product of the activity of learners." And I think that really summarizes active learning quite perfect in terms of what we've been talking about. Shaista, thanks so much for joining us today, sharing your experiences, sharing the things that you've been working on, your successes, the challenges, and also your teaching tips as well. For those of you who are more kind of interested in some of the things that we're doing around active learning here at Macmillan, obviously visit the MENA PD Academy website because I'm uploading things onto there continuously. It's still small because it's only just started, but I am growing it bit by bit. I might actually put together a little blog article with some signposts so people can learn a bit more about active learning if they would like. Just as your tea come to an end?
Yes, it has.
Mine has as well. I've got just a tiny little bit in there. So let's wrap up today's podcast episode. Thank you so much again for being with us.
Thank you, Mr. Nathan. It was surely my pleasure to be able to share and to come on this platform and talk to you and the viewers and the listeners.
Yeah, it was our pleasure to have you on the podcast episode today. And thanks everybody who's been in the chat box. People have been writing so many nice comments in the chat box today, giving their ideas, agreeing with a lot of the things that you've said, also recognizing those challenges that we were talking about, challenges for teachers, but challenges for active learning as well. Obviously, we hope you enjoyed today's discussion, and please do go and check out the other episodes on the website. For now, though, from Shaista and myself, we wish you and your students all the very best. We hope you have a great weekend, and we look forward to seeing you next week, I think, for another ELTea Time podcast, which will be the last one of the season. So Shaista, enjoy your weekend. I hope you have a great one. Thanks for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Sure, it's a pleasure.